When my ex-husband walked into that hospital, carrying his daughter in his arms and saw me sitting in the waiting room, he laughed right in my face. He asked, "Where is that defective son of yours? Did he finally kick the bucket?" He was always useless. He had no idea that the chief of medicine, who was about to save his daughter's life, was exactly the same boy he had kicked out of the house 18 years ago. Before I start telling you this story that still makes my heart race, tell me one thing in the comments. Where are you watching this from right now? I was sitting there in that cold reception area of General Hospital, flipping through an old magazine without really paying attention to the words, when I heard that voice. That voice I hadn't heard in almost 2 decades, but which still managed to turn my stomach. It was Marcus, my ex-husband, the man who tore me into pieces when I needed him the most. He rushed through the automatic doors carrying a girl of about 12 years old. The poor child was pale, sweating cold, and clearly very sick. He was shouting for help, desperate, demanding immediate attention, just like he did with everything in life. Marcus never asked for anything with a please. He always demanded. He always believed he had the right to have everything the moment he wanted it. Our eyes met purely by chance as he ran past the front desk. It took him about 3 seconds to recognize me. I saw the exact moment the realization hit him. His eyes went wide, his mouth went slack, and then that crooked, evil smile I knew so well came out. That smile he always wore right before he was about to spit poison. The nurse took the girl from his arms to rush her into the ER, and he stood there staring me down. I didn't look away. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me weak ever again. At 63 years old, I had learned that looking fear in the eye is the only way to beat it. "Well, well, well," he said, walking toward me with that arrogant strut that time hadn't managed to erase. It just made him look pathetic now. "If it isn't Bernice, what a surprise finding you here. Working as a janitor in the hospital now, huh? I always knew you'd end up like this." I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to let him get to me. "I'm just waiting for someone," I answered calmly, looking back down at my magazine. "Waiting for who? That son of yours with the problems?" He let out a bitter laugh. "By the way, tell me one thing I've always been curious about. Is that defective boy you insisted on raising still alive? Or did nature finally do the job you should have done and put him somewhere he wouldn't burden anyone?" His words echoed in the reception area. Some people looked up, shocked by such cruelty. I closed the magazine slowly, placed it on my lap, and looked him straight in the eyes. I didn't feel rage or resentment. I just had a calm certainty that this man was about to receive the lesson of his life. But before I tell you what happened in that hospital, I need to turn back time. I need you to see who the Bernice of 25 years ago was, so you can understand the depth of the hole this man threw me into. You have to know the fragile woman who believed his promises, who held his hand when he swore eternal love, who carried his son in her womb thinking she was building a family. I met Marcus when I was 26. I was an administrative assistant at an accounting firm, and he was the new sales manager, fresh from Chicago, full of grand plans and smooth talk. He had that big city charm. He talked about trips abroad, brand new cars, fancy restaurants. For a girl from a small town in Alabama like me, who had never really left the state, all of that seemed like a fairy tale. He courted me in a way I had never experienced. Flowers sent to the office, dinners at the most expensive places, promises of a queen's life by his side. He told me I was special, different from the other women, that he had chosen me out of all the girls chasing after him. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. We got married after 6 months of dating. It was a beautiful wedding with over 200 guests in a hall packed with imported lilies that cost an arm and a leg. I wore a white dress that looked like something out of a princess movie with a 10-foot train. In the photos from that day, my smile was real. My eyes shone with hope. I truly believed I had found the love of my life. The first few months were fine. Marcus worked a lot, made good money, and I quit my job to take care of the house like he asked. He said his wife shouldn't have to work, that it would be a sign he was failing as a provider. Back then it seemed romantic, but later I understood it was pure control. He wanted me to depend entirely on him. The pregnancy came 2 years into the marriage. When I took the test and saw those 2 pink lines, I cried with happiness. I ran to tell Marcus when he got home from work, and he lifted me up in his arms, spinning me around the living room. "We're going to have a son, my heir," he shouted, going crazy with joy. He was already talking about teaching the boy football, getting him into the best private schools, making him a champion. The months of pregnancy were intense. Marcus kept me on a short leash with everything: what I ate, how much weight I gained, if I was doing the right exercises. He bought books on pregnancy and child development. He insisted on going to every doctor's appointment. He wanted to control every detail. I thought it was concern, that he was being a dedicated father. I didn't realize it was an obsession with perfection. I remember clearly the last checkup before the birth. The doctor did a routine ultrasound and stared at the screen longer than usual. He called another colleague in to look. They spoke in low voices, pointing at things on the image I didn't understand at all. My heart started racing. "Is there a problem, doctor?" I asked, my voice trembling. He turned toward us with that solemn face doctors put on when they have bad news. "We've identified some markers that may indicate a genetic condition. Nothing that puts the baby's life at immediate risk, but it is important that you are prepared. The baby may be born with Down syndrome." The office went silent. I looked at Marcus seeking support, hoping he would grab my hand and tell me everything was going to be okay, that we would face whatever it was together. But what I saw on his face froze my blood. It was disgust. It was anger. It was rejection. "That has to be wrong," he said, standing up from the chair abruptly. "Do the study again. This cannot be happening to me." The doctor tried to explain that it was just a possibility, that we needed more tests to confirm, and that even if it was confirmed, children with Down syndrome could lead full and happy lives. Marcus didn't want to hear any of it. He stormed out of the office, slamming the door. I stayed there sitting with my hands on my belly, feeling my baby move, and I broke down crying. It wasn't fear of the syndrome. It was fear of my husband's reaction. I knew Marcus well enough to know that perfection was everything to him, and a son with special needs did not fit into the perfect plan he had built. The following weeks were a silent hell. Marcus barely spoke a word to me. He came home late, smelling of alcohol and cheap perfume. When I tried to talk about the baby, about preparing for anything, he cut me off sharply. "I don't want to talk about that," he would say, locking himself in his home office. I gave birth on a Tuesday afternoon. It was fast, intense, terrifying. Marcus was there, but it seemed like his mind was elsewhere, as if he preferred to be anywhere but there. When the doctor lifted my baby and I heard that strong, healthy cry, my heart exploded with love. It was a boy, my Dante. The nurse cleaned him up quickly and brought him over so I could see him. He was precious, with his almond-shaped eyes, his small flat nose, those characteristic features. I knew what it meant, but I didn't give a damn. He was my son. He was perfect. He was mine. "Hi, my love," I whispered, kissing his forehead. "Mama loves you so much." I looked at Marcus, hoping to see at least a spark of what I was feeling in his face. But what I saw was worse than indifference. It was disgust. He looked at our son as if he were looking at something repulsive. "I am not going to raise that," he said quietly, but firmly enough for me to hear every word. "That is not my son." The nurses tried to hide their embarrassment. One of them took Dante from my arms, saying she was going to do the initial checks. But I knew it was to give me a moment with Marcus. I was exhausted, sore, confused, but I still tried to believe he was just in shock, that he would get over it. "Marcus, please," I said, reaching out my hand. "He is our son. He needs us." He took a step back as if my touch would burn him. "He is not my son, Bernice. I made it very clear the kind of son I wanted. That thing there." He pointed to the crib where the nurse was attending to Dante. "That thing is a mistake. A factory defect." His words felt like stab wounds. Each syllable opened a new gash in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to beat him until he understood he was talking about our baby, about an innocent life that had just arrived in the world. But I was too weak, too tired, too broken. "Get out," I told him, turning my face away. "If you can't love your own son, then get the hell out." And he left. He walked out of that delivery room and the maternity ward without looking back. I stayed there alone, crying in silence until the nurse brought Dante back to me. She placed him in my lap without saying anything. She just squeezed my shoulder affectionately as if saying, "You can handle this." I looked at that little face, those eyes that barely opened, those tiny hands opening and closing, looking for something to hold on to. And in that moment, I made the most important decision of my life. If I had to choose between that man and this baby, I chose my son. Always. The first days at home were devastating. Marcus came back only to get his clothes. He said he was going to live in an apartment near his job, that he needed space to think. But we both knew that was the end. He was abandoning me because the son wasn't perfect enough for his ego. "You can keep the house for now," he said while packing a suitcase. "But don't think I'm going to support this kid forever. When the divorce goes through, you're going to have to scratch out a living on your own." I was sitting on the sofa with Dante asleep in my arms. I didn't even get up to watch him leave. I just hugged my baby tighter and thought, we are going to make it. I don't know how, but we will make it. Reality hit hard in the following weeks. I didn't have a job, I didn't have any savings worth mentioning, and I didn't have family nearby to lend a hand. My parents had died in a car accident 5 years earlier, and I was an only child. Marcus's family? They ghosted me as soon as they found out about Dante. His mother, who had always been so sweet to me when we got married, stopped answering my calls. Dante needed constant medical follow-up. Babies with Down syndrome have a higher risk of heart problems, respiratory issues, hearing problems. They need physical therapy from a young age to build muscle strength, speech therapy to help with talking, occupational therapy to stimulate development. All of that cost money I didn't have. I started selling things from the house. First went the jewelry Marcus had given me while we were dating and married. Then went the electronics, the expensive living room furniture, even designer clothes I never wore. Every dollar counted. Every cent was important to ensure my son lacked nothing. The divorce was fast and cruel. Marcus hired a shark of a lawyer who did everything to prove I was a negligent mother, that I had hidden information about the baby's health during the pregnancy, that I was trying to extort him. I didn't have the money to pay for a lawyer just as vicious. I accepted the deal they offered. I kept the house for 2 years, but then I had to sell it and split the money with him. There was no child support because he argued Dante wasn't capable of utilizing the money in a productive way. The judge, unfortunately, bought the story. When Dante turned 6 months old, I had to go back to work. I got a job cleaning an office building downtown. The shift was from 6 in the evening to midnight. I left Dante with a neighbor who charged me a low rate to watch him. It wasn't ideal, but it was what I could afford. My routine was grueling. I woke up at 5 in the morning with Dante, bathed him, did the exercises at home that the therapist at the community health center taught me, played with him, stimulated him. At 3 in the afternoon, I slept for a bit while he took his nap. At 5:30, I dropped him off at the neighbor's and went to work. I came back at 12:30 at night, picked him up asleep, and arrived home dead on my feet. But I always gave him a kiss on his forehead before sleeping. On weekends, I did extra cleaning in other people's houses to make ends meet. Dante went with me, sleeping in the stroller while I scrubbed floors, cleaned bathrooms, ironed clothes. Some of the women I worked for complained about me bringing him. They said it was unprofessional to bring children to work. I swallowed my tears and kept cleaning because I needed that money. But you know what was the most incredible thing of all? Dante was a happy baby. Despite all the struggles, despite developing slower, he was always smiling. When I arrived to pick him up from the neighbor, his little face lit up. He stretched out his little arms to me with that toothless smile that melted my heart. In those moments, I knew every bit of the grind was worth it. When he turned 1, he started showing progress that even I didn't believe. The therapist said he was developing very well, that the early stimulation was working. He started sitting up by himself, then crawling. I cried with emotion at every new milestone. It was around that time I met Dr. Whitman, a pediatrician specializing in child development who started consulting at the neighborhood health clinic. She checked Dante during a routine visit and was impressed with how attentive he was, how he reacted to everything. "Do you stimulate him at home, ma'am?" she asked me. "I do everything the therapist teaches me," I answered. "I talk to him a lot, read stories even though he's little, play different music for him, show him colors, textures." She smiled. "Keep it up. Dante has enormous potential. Children with Down syndrome can achieve much more than people believe, especially when someone puts in the effort from when they are small." Those words gave me life. I started researching everything I could about child development, stimulation methods, special education. I went to the public library on my days off and spent hours reading, taking notes, learning. I was going to be the best mother that boy could have, even if I had to study until dawn after a whole day of hard labor. Dante started talking at 2 years old. It was simple words at first: mama, water, woof woof, when he saw a dog. But for me, every word was a monumental victory. I recorded him with the old cell phone I carried just to watch it over and over and remember we were moving forward. At 3 years old, it was time to think about school. Private schools were unaffordable, and the public schools in our zone didn't have the structure for inclusion. I knocked on dozens of doors, spoke with a heap of principals. Some were honest and said they didn't know how to deal with special needs children. Others just made bureaucratic excuses not to accept the enrollment. That was when I met Ms. Halloway, the principal of a small elementary school in the next neighborhood over. She listened to my story, saw Dante playing with blocks in her office, and said, "We welcome your son here. We don't have experience with Down syndrome, but we'll learn together." And boy, did they learn. Ms. Halloway studied, trained the staff, adapted materials. Dante blossomed in that place. Of course, there were issues. Some kids made nasty comments. Some parents complained about him being there, but the school stood firm. It was at school where they started noticing something extraordinary about Dante. He had an impressive photographic memory. At 4 years old, he learned entire books by heart after hearing them 2 or 3 times. At 5 years old, he knew all the state capitals, every state flag, the anthems. The science teacher fell over backward when he explained the water cycle, with details that kids his age didn't understand. "Bernice," Ms. Halloway called me into a meeting when Dante was finishing kindergarten. "Your son has high capacities. He is gifted." I blinked, confused. "How? He has Down syndrome." "I know it's rare, but it's possible," she explained. "It's called twice exceptional. Dante has a genetic condition that affects some areas, but at the same time, he has intelligence far above average in others, especially memory, logic, and interest in science." That revelation completely changed how I saw Dante's future. He wasn't just a child with special needs that I had to help survive. He was a brilliant child with immense potential that I had to nurture. I started looking for more advanced educational materials. I went to used bookstores to buy secondhand books on science, biology, anatomy. Dante devoured everything. At 6 years old, he knew the name of every bone in the body. At 7, he understood basic physics and chemistry. At 8, he was already saying he wanted to be a doctor. "I want to help people, Mama," he told me with that voice that still struggled to pronounce some letters, but was firm and sure. "I want to cure people." I looked at that little boy with his Down syndrome features, with his motor limitations, with his speech that still needed therapy, and I saw a giant. I saw a boy who didn't let anything define him beyond his dreams. Entering elementary school was another challenge. Many teachers underestimated Dante because of his appearance, because of how he spoke, because he was a bit clumsy when he moved. In the first weeks, the math teacher called me in. "Ms. Vance, I believe Dante should be in a special education school," she told me, with that tone of pity that drove me crazy. "He won't be able to keep up with the group." I took a deep breath, controlling my anger. "Teacher, with all due respect, did you give him any knowledge test before saying that?" "Well, not specifically, but because of his condition." "Then do it," I said sharply.
Evaluate what he actually knows, and then we can talk about where he should be." She gave him the test and almost fell out of her chair when she saw that Dante got every question right, questions meant for children 2 years older. Not only did he get them right, but he explained different ways to solve the problems. From that day on, the teachers started seeing Dante with different eyes, not with pity, but with respect. Some still resisted. They kept thinking he shouldn't be there, but the majority recognized the talent my son had. Meanwhile, I kept working like crazy. I cleaned buildings, did housekeeping, washed other people's laundry on weekends. Everything to pay for Dante's therapies, supplies, the books he devoured. I aged fast those years. I went gray before 40. My body ached from so much scrubbing. My skin got spotted from exhaustion. But every time I saw Dante with a new book, with his eyes shining with curiosity, telling me about some scientific discovery with that big smile, I knew it was worth breaking my back for. And Marcus vanished from our lives. He didn't call on a single birthday. He didn't send a single Christmas gift. He didn't give a damn if his son was alive or dead. To him, we ceased to exist the day Dante was born. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had remarried, this time to a younger, prettier woman, and they had a daughter. He showed off the girl on all his social media, showing the world that now he finally had the perfect family he always wanted. I won't lie to you, it hurt. It hurt to see that he could move on, make the life he wanted, while I hustled alone to provide the basics for our son. But I didn't let that pain eat me up. I had more important things to do. Take care of Dante and help him reach his dreams. When he turned 10, the school called me for another meeting. This time, it was to talk about skipping him ahead. Dante is far above the level of his group, the principal explained. He has already mastered all the elementary content. We need to think about bigger challenges for him. So, at 10 years old, Dante skipped 2 grades and went straight to middle school. He was the shortest and the most different in the classroom, but also the smartest. The other students were weirded out at first. Some bullied him, said horrible things, but when they realized he explained the material better than the teacher, that he helped everyone on the hard exams, he became like the class hero. In high school, Dante had a clear objective: get into medicine. He studied with a discipline I had never seen in any teenager. He woke up at 5 in the morning, studied until 7, went to school, came back at 6 in the evening, and kept going until 11 at night. On weekends, he went to the library and spent the entire day there. I tried to convince him to rest a little, to go out with friends, to do normal teenager things, but he looked at me with those determined eyes and said, "Mama, I need to prove that I can. I need to show everyone that Down syndrome doesn't define me." The college entrance exam was a battle. Not because Dante couldn't do it academically, he was more than capable, but because the world still wasn't ready to accept a doctor with Down syndrome. We received calls from well-intentioned counselors saying I was giving the boy false hope, that medicine was impossible for someone like him, that I should encourage him to look for something more suitable to his limitations. I listened to everything quietly, and then I would look at Dante studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by biology and chemistry books, and I thought, to hell with the limitations they want to put on him. The day of the exam, I walked him to the university doors. He was nervous, sweating cold, but determined. "I can do this, Ma," he said, more for himself than for me. "I'm going to make it." And he made it. When the results came out and his name appeared on the acceptance list, I fell to my knees and cried like never before. It wasn't a cry of sadness or tiredness. It was a cry of gratitude, of pride, of victory. Dante had achieved it against all odds, against all prejudices, against all the low expectations the world had of him. My son had earned a spot in the medical school of one of the best universities in the country. Entering medical school was another universe of challenges. Most classmates were rich kids from expensive private schools with doctors or businessmen for parents. Dante was the poor black kid from the neighborhood with Down syndrome, who arrived by bus after a 2-hour commute. The first few months were tough. Some professors clearly doubted his capacity. Some classmates made nasty comments in the hallways. But Dante had a weapon they didn't expect. He was better than all of them. In the first midterms, he got the highest grades in the group.
In presentations, he demonstrated such deep knowledge that he left even the doctors wide-eyed. In clinical case discussions, he was always the first to find the correct diagnosis. Within a year, he went from being the guy with Down syndrome to the genius of the class. The same classmates who mocked him at the beginning now asked him for help studying. The same professors who doubted now invited him to research projects. I kept working hard to help pay his expenses. The university was public, but there were costs for books, materials, transportation. Dante got a scholarship, but we were still tight. I cleaned, took care of elderly folks, took any honest gig that came up. My body couldn't handle the rhythm of 20 years ago. My hands were swollen from arthritis from so much heavy cleaning. My back killed me. I took painkillers daily just to keep moving. But seeing my son in his white coat, with the stethoscope around his neck, made any pain worth it. In his third year, Dante decided to specialize in pediatrics. "I want to take care of kids like me, Mama," he explained. "I want them to know they can be whatever they want regardless of any diagnosis." That was when he started doing his rotations at General Hospital, the most important one in the city. He was in his last year when they offered him a residency right there in pediatrics with a focus on genetics and development. "It's the best residency program in the state," he told me, euphoric. "If I get in, I'll be able to specialize exactly in what I want." He passed the residency exam in first place among more than 200 candidates. The boy who was rejected by his own father for having Down syndrome was now the brightest resident physician at General Hospital. When he received his coat with the embroidered name, Dr. Dante Vance, pediatric resident, I cried again. 24 years of struggle, sacrifice, sleepless nights, heavy labor. It had all been worth it. My son had become a doctor, and not just any doctor. With barely 2 years of residency, he was already recognized as one of the most brilliant minds in the hospital. He published articles in major scientific journals. He gave presentations at national conferences. They invited him to be part of the genetics research team. At 26, they promoted him to chief resident of pediatrics. The boy the world said wouldn't achieve anything was now commanding a team of 15 doctors, all older than him, all normal, all looking at him with respect and admiration. It was around that time he insisted on buying me a house. "That's enough renting, Ma," he said seriously. "You worked your whole life for me. Now it's my turn to take care of you." I tried to refuse. I told him to save, to invest in his future. But Dante didn't take no for an answer. He bought a simple but comfortable house in a quiet suburb, furnished it completely, and forced me to stop working. "Your days of scrubbing floors are over, Mama," he said, holding my calloused hands in his. "Now you are going to rest. You are going to take care of your health. You are going to enjoy life." In my 50s, for the first time since Dante was born, I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to get up at dawn to catch the bus. I didn't have to scrub floors until my back screamed. I could simply be a mom without having to be dad, mom, provider, and therapist all at the same time. My new routine was waking up without an alarm, eating breakfast calmly, walking in the park, going to craft classes at the church, simple things I never had time to do. Dante insisted on taking me to frequent medical checkups, caring for every detail of my health with the same zeal he cared for his patients. That's how we discovered I had high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and the beginnings of osteoporosis, the bill for years of stress and hard labor. Dante put together a complete treatment plan, handpicked the best specialists, and personally reviewed every test. "You took care of me my whole life," he would say. "Now let me take care of you." And so the years passed, me recovering from a life of struggle, him building a brilliant career. Finally, we were at peace. Finally, we could breathe without the weight of survival crushing us. Marcus remained a ghost of the past. 18 years went by without a single word, without a sign of life. Until that Tuesday morning at General Hospital. I was there because Dante asked me to come by to sign some papers for his medical insurance, where he had listed me as a beneficiary. I arrived early, took a number, and sat down to wait. I was flipping through a magazine when I heard the commotion at the entrance. An older man ran in through the automatic doors, carrying a teenager in his arms. He was shouting for help. He was desperate. I looked up, and my heart stopped. Although older, thinner, more hunched over, I recognized that face. It was Marcus. He didn't see me at first. He was too focused on getting them to attend to the girl. But when the nurses took the girl into the ER, he turned around and our gazes collided. I saw the shock on his face, the delayed recognition, and then that smile I remembered too well. He walked toward me with clumsy steps, clearly shaken, but trying to maintain that arrogance of always. "Bernice," he said, and my name in his mouth sounded like poison. "What a surprise!" I didn't answer him. I just held his gaze. He was old, much older than 18 years should have made him. His hair was white, his skin sagging and spotted. He looked sick, fragile, finished. "Working here?" he asked with that mocking tone. "Cleaning the hospital toilets? I'm just waiting for my son," I answered calmly. That was when he let out that bitter laugh and said the words I told you at the beginning. "Is that defective son of yours still alive, or did nature finally do the job?" I didn't let him finish. "Dante is doing very well, thanks for asking," I told him with a firm voice, despite the anger burning me inside. "Actually, he works here." Marcus laughed harder. "Works here doing what? Washing the instruments? Pushing gurneys? Oh, Bernice, you were always good at making up stories to feel better about your failed decisions." At that moment, the ER doors opened. Out came Dante in his impeccable white coat, the chief resident badge hanging around his neck, followed by 3 residents writing down every word he said. He was explaining something about a protocol using complicated medical terms with that natural authority of someone who knows what they are doing. The residents listened attentively, asking him questions that he answered with patience and precision. Dante saw me at the reception desk, and his face lit up with that big smile that always melted me. He excused himself from the residents and walked toward me. "Mama," he said, hugging me, "sorry for the delay. We had an emergency in pediatric intensive care, and they needed my assessment." It wasn't until he let go of the hug that he noticed Marcus standing next to me, mouth open, pale as a ghost. "Everything okay, Ma?" Dante asked, noticing my tension. "Is this gentleman bothering you?" I was going to answer, but Marcus got ahead of me with a trembling voice. "Dante, my son." My son looked at the older man with a neutral, professional expression. There was no recognition there, only the automatic courtesy of a doctor dealing with a patient's relative. "Yes, I am Dr. Dante Vance. Are you a relative of the patient who just was admitted?" he asked, pulling out his tablet to check the file. I am your father," Marcus said, his voice breaking. The silence that followed felt eternal. Dante stopped typing on the tablet and looked up slowly to look at Marcus. His face remained neutral, but I knew my son. I knew every gesture. I saw the old pain waking up, but I also saw the strength he had built over the years. "No, sir," Dante said with a calm but firm voice. "You are not my father. My father died before I was born. You are just the man who abandoned my mother and me 18 years ago because I wasn't perfect enough for you." Marcus recoiled as if he had been slapped. "Son, Dr. Vance," my son corrected, "and I am not your son. Now, if you'll allow me, I need to know your relationship to the patient who just arrived so I can attend to her properly." Just then, a nurse approached with a chart. "Dr. Vance, the patient Imani, 12 years old, admitted with seizures and high fever. The father reported a history of seizures since 6 months of age. We need your assessment urgently." Dante grabbed the chart and started reading. I saw his face change, the professional expression giving way to real concern. He looked at Marcus. "Are you Imani's dad?" he asked. Marcus just nodded his head, unable to speak. "Come with me," Dante said, walking toward the ER. "I need the complete history of her seizures. When did they start? How often do they happen? How long does each crisis last? What medicines does she take?" I stood there watching them walk away. Marcus turned once looking for me, but I turned my back. He didn't deserve even that from me. I sat down again and waited. I knew Dante was going to take a while. He always took his time with every patient, especially if they were children. I grabbed my phone and pretended to be busy, but my mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour, processing the absurdity of it all. The man who abandoned us now depended on the son he rejected to save the daughter he decided to love. The irony was so perfect it seemed like a movie script. 2 hours passed. Finally, Dante came out of the ER looking tired but satisfied. He sat next to me. "How are you?" he asked quietly. "I should be asking you that," I answered, grabbing his hand. He sighed deeply. "Imani is stable. It was a seizure caused by a high fever due to an infection. I prescribed antibiotics and anticonvulsants. She's going to stay admitted for a few days for observation." "And him?" I asked without saying the name. "He's desperate," Dante said. "His daughter has severe epilepsy. Apparently they've hospitalized her a bunch of times. He showed me a folder full of studies, diagnoses from various specialists. It seems no doctor has managed to control the seizures entirely." I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. I wanted to see it as divine justice. The man who rejected a son for genetics now had a daughter with a serious neurological problem. But the bigger part of me, the one Dante taught me to nurture over the years, only felt sadness for the innocent girl suffering. "What are you going to do?" I asked him. "My job," he answered simply. "I am going to take care of Imani the best I can. She isn't to blame for who her dad is, and I didn't become a doctor to choose who I help based on grudges." My son, always so full of integrity, always so much better than any of us deserved. The following days, Imani remained hospitalized, and Dante handled the case personally. He ordered a complete battery of tests, consulted with other specialists, reviewed the entire history. I knew he did it not for Marcus, but in spite of him. Marcus tried to approach Dante several times, waited for him in the hallways, tried to make small talk beyond medical stuff, but Dante maintained impeccable professional distance. He answered what was necessary about the treatment, and that was it. It was on the 4th day that Dante made an important discovery. He was reviewing Imani's old scans when he noticed something the other doctors had missed. "Ma," he called me that afternoon with an excited voice, "I think I found the root cause of Imani's seizures. She has a small malformation in the temporal lobe that the others didn't see because it only shows up on a specific type of MRI. If I'm right, there is a surgery that can eliminate the seizures completely." "That is wonderful," I told him. "Are you going to tell him?" There was a pause. "Yes, because it's the right thing to do." That night, Dante summoned Marcus to his office. I wasn't there, but Dante told me about it later. He showed him the scans, explained the finding, detailed the operation and the chances of success. Marcus listened to everything in silence, tears running down his face. When Dante finished, Marcus just said, "Why?" "Why what?" Dante asked. "Why are you doing this? After everything I did to you and your mom, why do you care about helping my daughter?" Dante told me he stayed quiet a moment looking for the words. Then he said, "Because I am not you. You abandoned a son because of a genetic condition. I am not going to abandon a patient because of who her father is. Imani deserves the best treatment, and I am going to give it to her. Not for you, but for her." Marcus tried to say more, to ask for forgiveness, but Dante raised his hand, stopping him cold. "Mr. Thorne, I understand this is difficult, but I want to make it clear that our relationship begins and ends in this hospital with the treatment of your daughter. I don't want your apologies. I don't want you trying to reconnect. I have a wonderful mother who was dad and mom to me my whole life. I have a full and happy life. You are part of my DNA, but you are not part of my story. I hope you can respect that." They scheduled Imani's surgery for the following week. Dante wasn't going to operate. He was a pediatrician, not a neurosurgeon, but he would coordinate the entire team and be glued to the process. I went to the hospital the day of the operation, not to see Marcus, but to support my son. I knew that no matter how professional he was, the situation shook him up. I ran into Marcus in the waiting room, alone. He looked different, more hunched, more fragile, more scared. When he saw me, he stood up slowly. "Bernice," he said with a hoarse voice, Can I talk to you, please?" Every fiber of my being wanted to tell him to go to hell. I wanted to turn my back and leave just like he did 18 years ago. But I remembered what Dante said about not being like him, about being better. I took a deep breath and nodded. We sat down with space between us. He looked at his trembling hands before speaking. "I don't even know where to start," he said. "Asking for forgiveness sounds like so little for what I did." I didn't answer, just waited. "When Dante was born, I panicked," he continued. "All I saw was the syndrome, the difference, the what will people say. I couldn't see beyond that. And I was too much of a coward to admit that the problem was in me, not in him." "You're right," I told him. "Forgiveness isn't enough." He nodded, crying. "I threw away the best thing that could have happened to me. I had a second chance with Imani. I thought I could be the dad I wasn't for him. But life has a very dark sense of humor. Imani was born with severe epilepsy. And do you know what my first reaction was? Panic again. Fear again. I almost made the same mistake twice." "But you didn't," I said coldly. "No, because my wife didn't let me. She told me if I abandoned the girl, she would leave me, so I stayed. I learned to love beyond limitations, but it was already too late for Dante." "Too late," I confirmed. "When I saw him there with his white coat, hearing them call him Doctor, commanding the whole team. Bernice, I couldn't believe it. How is it that a boy you called defective became a brilliant doctor?" "With hard work," I completed his sentence. "With determination. With a mother who never doubted him. With therapies, stimulation, quality education. With unconditional love. Everything you didn't want to give him." He sobbed, covering his face. I looked at that broken man and didn't feel pleasure. I felt nothing, just emptiness. He didn't mean anything to me anymore. Not anger, not hate, not a desire for revenge, pure indifference. "Dante is an incredible man," I told him. "He has saved the lives of hundreds of children. He publishes research that is changing how medicine treats these conditions. He is respected, admired, loved, and he achieved all of that not thanks to you, but in spite of you." Marcus lifted his face full of tears. "I know, I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve to even speak to him. But I need you to know that I regret it every day. Every day I see Imani and I think of him, of what I lost, of who he became without me." "Well," I said, standing up, "I hope that regret keeps you company for the rest of your life. I hope you never forget that you abandoned a perfect son because you were too imperfect to see past your own nose." I was turning around to leave when he called me again. "Bernice, wait, My wife left me 6 months ago. She met another guy. She took everything in the divorce, the house, the car, the savings. I live in a tiny apartment. I barely make enough for the bills. They canceled Imani's insurance because I couldn't pay. They are treating her here through state aid or whatever they have now. I lost everything." He expected pity. He expected me to feel something for him. But I only felt more emptiness. "You know what's funny?" I told him. "I raised Dante without owning a home, working 3 jobs, living in attic rooms, eating the basics. We didn't have anything, but we had love. We had purpose. We had each other. You had everything material, and you lost it because you never knew how to value what matters. I don't pity you, Marcus. You are reaping exactly what you sowed." This time I left without looking back. Imani's surgery lasted 6 hours. It was a success. Dante came to give me the news with a tired face, but happy. "She's going to be okay," he said. "The neurosurgeon removed the entire malformation. The chances of her having seizures dropped to less than 5%. She's going to be able to live a normal life." I hugged my son, feeling pride swell in my chest. "You saved her life." "We saved it," he corrected. "I just saw the problem. The whole team pulled together." Always so humble, always sharing the credit. They discharged Amani a week later. The day she left, Marcus tried to approach Dante again, to thank him exaggeratedly, to create some bond. But Dante only shook his hand formally, wished the girl a good recovery, and said goodbye. Just that simple, without drama, without malice, but without opening the door. I thought the story ended there, that Marcus would go away with his cured daughter and we would go back to our business. But fate had other plans. 3 months later, I was at the house when Dante arrived early from work. He had a strange look on his face, not happy, but not bummed out either. It was somewhere between surprise and disbelief. "Mama, I have to tell you something," he said, sitting on the sofa. "What happened? Is everything okay?" Marcus looked for me today at the hospital. I tensed up entirely. "What did he want?" Dante sighed. "He said Amani is doing wonderfully, not a single seizure since the operation, and he wants to make a donation to the hospital, a large donation." "Donation?" I repeated, confused. "But you said he was ruined." "He was, but apparently he sold a piece of land he had saved, some family inheritance, and he wants to donate all the money to create a research fund for childhood epilepsy at the hospital." I didn't know what to say. "That is unexpected." "There's more," continued Dante. "He wants the fund to be in my name. He said he wants it to be the Dr. Dante Vance Fund for Childhood Epilepsy Research. Did you accept?" I told him I was going to think about it, that I had to talk it over with you. We stayed silent. It was a lot to process. The man who abandoned us now wanted to immortalize the name of the son he rejected on a medical fund. "What do you think, Ma?" he asked. "Do you think it's genuine, or is it pure guilt trying to buy forgiveness?" I thought about it carefully. I think it can be both things. It can be guilt and still be genuine. The question is this going to do you good or bad? Dante sat thinking. "You know what's weird? I don't feel anything for him, not anger or resentment. He's like a stranger, someone who is biologically connected to me, but emotionally he's a zero. He doesn't matter." "And the money?" I insisted. "That money can help a lot of kids." "Yeah," he agreed, "and that's why I'm thinking of accepting. Not for him, but for the kids." And that's what he did. He accepted the donation with the condition that Marcus understood this didn't change anything. It was a medical act, not an emotional bond. They created the fund with pomp and circumstance. The hospital held a ceremony, invited the press, the whole show. Marcus was there, trying to look important, to hang on a little to Dante's light. But the one shining was my son. He gave an impressive speech about the importance of research, about how every child deserves to live without limitations. He spoke of Amani and how medicine changes lives. He didn't mention Marcus once, and that, in a way, was the best revenge, making the man irrelevant in his own story. After the ceremony, at the toast, I saw Marcus approach Dante. I got close to hear. "Dante," he said doubtfully, "I know this doesn't change anything. I know I don't have the right to ask, but do you think maybe one day we could—" "No," Dante interrupted him, kind but firm. "Mr. Thorne, I appreciate the donation. It's going to help many. But that's as far as it goes. I have a family. I have a mother who sacrificed everything for me. I have friends, colleagues. My life is full. There is no empty space for you to fill." Marcus nodded slowly, defeated. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong I was, how extraordinary you are." "I was always extraordinary," Dante said without arrogance, just as a fact. "The difference is that you couldn't see beyond your prejudices. But that is your problem, not mine. I hope you learned something with Amani. I hope you are the father for her that you couldn't be for me." And he turned and came toward me, offering me his arm. "Let's go, Ma. I have an early shift tomorrow." We walked out together, leaving Marcus behind once again. But this time it wasn't abandonment. It was a choice. The choice not to let the past embitter our future. In the car on the way back, Dante looked at me and said, "Thanks, Ma." "For what?" I asked him. "For never throwing in the towel on me, for never making me feel less, for teaching me that Down syndrome is a characteristic, not a definition, for teaching me that the grind and love can handle anything." My eyes filled with tears. "You don't have to thank me for loving you, my son. It was the easiest thing I've ever done." "It wasn't easy," he said. "I know it wasn't. I remember you coming home dead tired. I remember you ate less to leave more for me. I remember you crying in secret. None of that was easy, Mama, but you did it." "I would do it all again," I told him, grabbing his hand. 1,000 times. We got home and did our usual routine. Him telling me cases from the hospital, me talking about the church group. It was simple, it was common, it was perfect. That night, before sleeping, I thought about the whole journey. 26 years since that day in the hospital when Marcus looked at our son with disgust. 26 years of fighting. And in the end, the man who believed perfect genetics ensured success was alone and broken. The boy he rejected was saving lives and changing the world. Life gave everyone what they deserved. I closed my eyes and gave thanks. Thanks for the hardships that made us strong. Thanks for every tear. Thanks for every challenge that formed the extraordinary man my son is today. And strangely, I even gave thanks for Marcus, because if he had stayed with his prejudices, he would have dimmed Dante's shine. He would have spent years trying to fix something that was never broken. His abandonment, as much as it hurt, was the best gift he could give us. It gave us freedom to grow, to shine. The following months brought more recognition for Dante. His research appeared in a very prestigious international journal. They invited him to give conferences in other countries. But what made me proudest was how he treated his patients. One afternoon, I was in the waiting room when a young woman came in with a crying baby. The baby had Down syndrome. The mom was desperate, lost. Dante attended to her personally. When she came out, the girl was a different person. She had tears, but tears of hope. She stopped to talk to me. "That doctor," she told me, pointing to the office. "He has Down syndrome, and he is a doctor. He told me my son can be whatever he wants. He showed me success stories. For the first time, I'm not afraid. I have hope." I almost exploded with pride. That was what it was about. Dante wasn't just saving lives. He was changing mentalities, breaking barriers. He became a symbol. He started giving talks at schools, support groups, always with the same message. The limitation is in the head of the one who underestimates, not in the one being underestimated. A journalist asked him for an interview to tell the story of the doctor who defeated Down syndrome. Dante accepted, but with one condition. "I didn't defeat Down syndrome," he explained to her. "I have Down syndrome, and I always will. It is part of me. What I defeated was prejudice, low expectations. Those are the true disabilities, not in my extra chromosome, but in people's mentality." The report came out beautiful. It went viral all over the country. Letters arrived from everywhere, and you know who saw the report? Marcus. He called the hospital asking to speak with Dante. My son didn't return the call. Marcus insisted for weeks. He even tried to go there, but security didn't let him pass. That was when he found me coming out of the pharmacy. Older, more desperate. "Bernice, please," he pleaded. "I just want to talk to him for 5 minutes." "He doesn't want to talk to you, Marcus. Accept it." I saw the report. I saw what he became. I need to tell him I was wrong, that I'm sorry. "You already said it many times. Apologies don't change the past." "I know," he almost shouted, "but I need to try. I need him to know I regret it daily." I looked at that man and felt nothing. Not even pity, just tiredness. "Marcus, you want forgiveness to feel better yourself. But forgiveness isn't about you. It's about the person you hurt. And Dante doesn't need to forgive you to keep going. He already got over this. You are a ghost he decided to leave behind." "And you?" he asked. "Do you forgive me?" I thought about all the nights I cried alone, about the hunger, about the back pain. "No," I told him. "I don't forgive you." But I don't hold a grudge against you either. Simply put, you don't matter anymore. You are irrelevant in my life and in Dante's, and I think that is worse than hate, isn't it? I left him there and walked away. And that time, I closed the chapter forever. Another year passed. Dante turned 28. We had a party at the house. In the middle of the party, he called me aside. "Ma, I want to give you something," he said, handing me an envelope. It was the deed to the house in my name. "Dante, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he interrupted. "You deserve security, Ma. You should never lack a roof over your head. This house is yours." I cried like a baby. 28 years ago, I was on the street with an infant. Now I owned my own home. "There's more," he said, smiling. "I met someone." "What?" "A doctor. Simone. She's a cardiologist, pediatric. She is incredible, Ma. And she sees me. You know? She doesn't see the syndrome." I laughed and cried at the same time. My baby was in love. "She's at the party," he said, blushing. "The one in the blue dress." I saw her. She was laughing with people. She looked like a good person. "Does she know everything?" I asked. "About Marcus?" "Yeah, I told her. She said that only proves how strong I am. I met Dr. Simone and she was a sweetheart. Most importantly, she looked at my son with real love. They dated for 2 years and then got engaged. The wedding was scheduled for the following spring. A week before the wedding, Imani, Marcus's daughter, called us. She was 15 years old and calling in secret. "Dr. Vance," she said nervously, "it's about my dad. He's very sick. Pancreatic cancer. He's dying. He says he needs to make peace before going." Dante looked at me. I just told him it was his decision. "Imani," he said, "I'm very sorry, but I don't know if I can give him what he wants." "I understand," she said, crying. "I just wanted to thank you. You saved my life, and despite who my dad is, you never treated me differently. You are a good man." "You don't have to carry your father's mistakes," Dante told her. After hanging up, he sat thinking. In the end, he decided to go, not for Marcus, but for himself, to close the cycle. I went with him. Marcus was in a public hospital in a shared room. He was skin and bones, yellow. "You came," he whispered when he saw Dante from afar. "For Imani, not for you," Dante said. "I didn't expect you to come." "I didn't come to make your death easy," Dante said. "I came to tell you some things for me." Marcus nodded. "I could tell you I forgive you, but it would be a lie. I don't forgive you, not for what you did to me. That's done. But for what you did to my mom. You left her on the street with a newborn. You forced her to break her back. She sacrificed her life for me while you lived your perfect life." Marcus was crying. "I know. That's why I can't die in peace." "And you shouldn't," Dante said. "Carry that weight until the end, because actions have consequences." "I just wanted you to know," Marcus said, "that now I see. I see that you are extraordinary, that I was blind. I missed out on knowing an incredible son." "You're right," Dante answered. "You missed everything. My first steps, my graduation, my life. And the saddest part is, you didn't miss it out of obligation, but by choice. But I thank you for one thing. If you had stayed, you would have poisoned my childhood. Your abandonment set me free." "I don't deserve forgiveness," whispered Marcus. "No. But I am going to give you something better. Indifference. You no longer occupy space in my heart, and I am going to continue my happy life without looking back. Oh, and I'm getting married next week. And if I have children, they will only know one grandfather, Grandpa Joe. My true father, even though he died before I was born. Because a father is the one who raises you, and you were never my father." We walked out of there. In the hallway, Dante took a deep breath. "I am free," he told me. Marcus died 3 days later. Dante sent flowers as a courtesy to Imani, but he didn't go to the funeral. The day of the wedding, the church was full of love. Dr. Simone looked beautiful, and when it was time for the groom to enter, there was no Dad, but there was Mom. I walked with him to the altar, with my heart exploding. During the vows, Dante turned toward me. Before promising love to Simone, I have to thank my mom. Mama, you taught me what unconditional love is. You taught me that the only real disability is the lack of love. Everything I am is because of you. Nobody could stop crying. At the party, watching my son dance the waltz, I thought about how far we had come. Life has those ironies. The man who abandoned us died alone and full of regret, and us, the defectives, built a life full of love and success. Today, at my 63 years, I tell you, every tear was worth it. And if I could turn back time, I wouldn't change anything, because every challenge formed the extraordinary man my son is. If this story touched your heart, leave me a like. Tell me in the comments what country you're watching us from, and if you ever had to prove your worth when they doubted you. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe right now. Every week I bring real stories. Hit the bell icon, and if you want to support the channel more, become a member. A kiss to your heart, everyone, and remember, never let anyone define your worth.